Alrighty. Welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merriel Solesky here. Say hi, Merriel.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's we're in the middle of May, almost towards the end of May. Basically, summer's here. I did hear we may have a weak front coming through, but basically after that, we're looking at 90s and above. Summer's here, fishing's heating up, and I mean, the only bad thing is that we've recently had that whole barge incident in Galveston, tons of rain, but other than that, everything's good.
Yeah, man, the weather has been crazy, especially if you're a person that likes to fish offshore. It's been threes and above, maybe some twos scattered in there. But weather's just been way too crazy for me to get out there and do what I want to. It's been tough. Um, been doing a little bit of inshore fishing here and there, but yeah, I'm just waiting for those better days so I can get out there. And June 1st, snapper. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that was
State
just announced,
snapper.
right?
Yeah, yeah. State snapper is going to be a four state snapper that's within 9 miles. Past that is federal waters, and that's going to be two snapper per day. Um, so
And the
yeah, that's going to
in-state is all year round. So if you can find them, right? Or
yes,
is
yeah,
that
yeah.
different?
Well, they changed the rules
Okay.
recently, even for state snapper. Um, so yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. They're changing the rules. It's kind of hard to keep up with this last couple years. It's just been like changing the rules, changing the rules, changing the rules. It used to be for snapper year round. Couldn't forget about it, and then they changed the rules. And I don't know if they're gonna change it back for good or that was just a small little thing they did. I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna enjoy catching snapper here shortly. So I'm looking forward to doing my little snapper run. How about you? You gonna go with me one day, Jonathan?
Uh, I would definitely like to. I've just been so busy. I haven't even had any time to go fishing. So the days that I always at the beginning of the week, Monday. So I like, obviously I have work a 9 to 5 job on Monday. I'm looking at the weekend. I'm like, okay, what days am I going to go? Because I usually go once a week on either Saturday or Sunday. I'll pick the best day, and I'll go. But life has just been so busy. I haven't had the opportunity to go, and it's kind of sucks. Getting my fishing withdrawals in,
Oh yeah, yeah. It's starting to feel it, huh? It's starting to
starting to
itch a
feel
little
it.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even though I know, like last few weeks, I know, just a lot of things going on. I'm still looking on Monday. I'm looking like, oh, the wind's 20 miles an hour. That's fine. I know where to go, or I know where I want to go. Or it's
right.
even worse when it's like, Sunday, man, you're looking at the strong falling tide and looking at like 8 mile an hour winds. Wish I can go, but um,
Oh,
it's
today's your
been
son's birthday, huh?
it was actually yesterday. I posted late on my Facebook page
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm a slacker. But yeah, by the way, if you want to follow our fishing journeys, either Merrill or I's, you can find One Less Cast podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/One Less Cast podcast. We try to go live every other Tuesday. We've been a little inconsistent, but it's fishing talk. We have lives outside of fishing in this podcast, believe it or not. So uh, um, but it's been, yeah, if you want to follow us, we're on facebook.com// One Less Cast podcast. You can also find us on YouTube as well, or on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. And while we're at it, let me give a shout out to our sponsors, Knock and Tail Lures. If you're looking for the soft plastic that we both Merrill and I use, the paddle tail with the rattle inside, it is awesome. Go to My Coast Outdoors or knockandtaillures.com. 30 South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a Facebook group to talk kayak fishing up and down the Texas coast, go search DSKA on Facebook. For a printing, if you're looking for printing solutions such as buffs, towels, or anything like that, hit up Aaron. He'll get you hooked up. And of course, Merrill's lovely wife, if you're looking for real estate here, either residential or commercial here in Houston, reach out to her. You can reach her at 281-740-0498 or Brittany Solesky at gmail.com. That's Brittany, Britney, Solesky, Solesky at gmail.com. So
I think she was gonna do something with, if you use her, she was gonna either like pay for a guided trip, or like I have to get with her, or do like a really nice like fishing package,
ooh.
just to motivate people to use her. Um, I don't know. I think she's busy enough as it is, but you know. Anyways, but oh yeah, so you mentioned the knocking tails. I had a guy sent a package to, a recent package, just a regular listener. He asked about them, and he's like, "Why did you send me such little amount?" I was like, "Because I use them. I use them too." So yeah, I gotta restock up on those lures.
It's just a sampler pack that way that
Yeah. If you like them, you can pay for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, man, I think I gave him like 5 lures. Because typically, I give him like 5 of them in a bag, and he's like, "Dude, that's it."
You need to just get him hooked on it, pun intended. Get him hooked on it that way that he goes to knockandtaillures.com and buys some.
Yeah, you need to, do that, Martin. Yeah, but I want to talk about my fishing journey offshore. I found a window. I think it was Monday or Tuesday of last week, and it was where the weather app says it was going to be 1 to 2s or 2 to. I wasn't sure what it said, but I noticed that the app was saying one thing, but when I was driving by the water, I was seeing something else. And
was it better or worse?
It was actually better. The weather,
okay, that's good.
Usually it's the opposite, right? Yeah. But this time it was actually the water was better, and I noticed that the morning before, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get my kayak loaded up and everything, because I was doing night fishing out by Sea Isle. So I was doing night fishing out there. So I drive by the water, and then one time I just left late and came in, saw the water, weather app was wrong. And so next day, loaded up the yak, had it ready, went out there, tons of jacks. I mean, these were like you would look one way and just bait getting torn up. You'd look another way and baits getting tore up. Then you see big schools of jacks just swimming underneath and beside the kayak as I'm making my way to my point. And those just jacks and sharks everywhere, mainly jacks. Didn't really get a lot of jacks a little bit a lot of sharks further out, but there was definitely a lot of sharks in shallow. Shallow, like a mile, somewhere around there, the mile mark. But the further I got out, the more jacks they were. I had 2 good runs, but I didn't get to hook up on anything other than jacks, which I wasn't looking for jacks. Usually when a buddy of mine says, "Hey, I need shark bait," they'll hit me up, go catch some jackfish. We got tons of jacks. They're great fights. Don't get me wrong. Love the fight. Great fights. It's just when you catch a lot of them, I guess the fights, and they're tough fights. They're really, really good, tough fights. And it's like, man, that's not what I'm here for, I don't know. Maybe that's some people's cup of tea. You want to go out there.
Some people love it. But there's definitely a bunch of YouTubers out in Florida. They'll be targeting snook off the bulkheads, and then they'll just get blown up by a jack, and it makes for good videos. But
it might be a YouTube thing. I don't know. Right? It's like good video.
Well, I mean, I know some people, like, for me, being inshore about 99% of the time, if I catch a jack inshore, it's fun. But I do know that when you're out there and you're especially if you're targeting the kings or other fish and you get a jack, it's just you're expending energy that you shouldn't be expending.
Right.
I do remember, going out when I was at Texas City and I was catching trout, and I just saw this whole school of jacks just pop up, blowing up bait. And with my little ultralight setup, 1,000 size reel and medium light action rod, is pedaled as fast as I could, caught up to him, tossed my spook in there, not even like twitch it, they just ate it, and I got
I do like
towed
a
around.
top water. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But I do like a top water. Like the top water is cool when they blow up on the top waters, the jacks. So that's pretty cool. But I mean, I would do that with no hooks, right? Just throw it out there just so they can watch them blow it up, and then. But nah, I mean, I'm not. That's not what I'm targeting.
Yeah, no, I understand, and
Yeah.
especially if you get into, I got into a bunch of them, and my 1,000 size Shimano Sienna, which is like the low end Shimano at the time, I like burned up every single gear in there, like it was grinding.
They'll mess
And
up. They'll mess up those small reels.
yeah,
They'll
don't
tear
mess up
them
those
up.
small reels, and but I was exhausted after like I didn't even land a single one. I fought like 4 of them, got them close to the kayak, and I just never was able to land one of them. But I was exhausted. My arms were jello, and I'm like, man, that was a mistake. And I was being blown away from the dike into the
Oh
ship
man.
channel, so I'm like, man, I have to
Oh,
cut in. And
you can't be in that ship channel.
yeah, I can't be in the ship channel.
Not
So
that. If all ship channels, that one's probably the worst.
yeah, so I booked it back in, but yeah, it was fun at first.
Yeah. The first one's fun. After that, it's
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm done. But I mean, so right now there's a ton of jackfish running through our surf. I think they're catching them on the piers. I hope they've been catching them on the piers for the last 2 weeks, right?
Yeah,
Week and
they've been.
a
If you
half,
look,
2 weeks.
yeah, if you search up 91st Pier and 61st Pier, they'll be showing their catches. And there's a lot of jacks, a lot of black drum too. I've been showing up.
Those sailfish caught off of Navarre Pier. I saw a post about that.
Wow.
So you Florida guys that listen in, or that like that kind of coast, there was a sailfish caught off a pier, which we used to get one off of the like Corpus Christi jetty or somewhere in Corpus or Aransas Pass. Somebody will catch like a sailfish or kingfish like off the jetties, which is a good indicator for a lot of things. Once you see somebody catch one of those, like, okay, it's time. Let's get out there. So, but
I mean, I don't want to give away one of your secrets, but I do know they start catching them off like the Freeport jetties.
right.
That you just start going, you take the kayak out there and start trolling.
Yeah. I go a little bit further than the jetties. I'm not one of those guys that like to kayak or boat fish right there where other fishermen are fishing.
Yeah, no, I just didn't want to give away if you wanted to keep it a secret, but I do know that you obviously go past the jetties, and it's a good indication that the kingfish will be around some of those areas.
Oh yes. I'll see what you're saying there. Yeah. Let's talk about Corpus. I was actually in Corpus this Saturday. Man, it was packed. I think they had like a run marathon or something, or I don't know. They had something at the beach. It was super packed, but it was weird because we used to launch off at Ball Paw, and you'd go out to the rig, and then you go out to the other rigs, and it doesn't seem close anymore. It looks further, and now that Ball Paw's gone, the pier's gone. And that used to be you could see the pier from way out there and come back. I don't know how that's going to be. I guess you could still see the building they have. Maybe you could see that when you go out there. But I don't know how that journey is going to be next time. But for you Corpus Christi fishermen out there that like to go troll for kingfish out at that, what is it, a 1.5 mile rig, 2 mile rig?
It's somewhere around there, yeah.
So the journey I like is I go from Bulb Hall to the 1.5, 2 mile rig, and then I go in the middle, the helicopter pad one. I think it's a helicopter one that's in the middle of the two ones. So then and from there to there is usually when I get my most action, is between those two rigs, and I just take that one, and then I go around that one, and I'll go around the last one that's closest to shore, and then I come back into Ball Ball. I know some people that take the journey to the they'll pass the first one, go to the farthest one, and then circle around the side or zigzag in between and come back. The prince or Mayan princess, I've
Yeah.
done that one maybe a handful of times. I just like that routine because I got that routine, and that's the one I stick to for offshore fishing. Mainly trolling for kingfish or see if there's any snapper or cobia at the rigs. It's typically the thing that I do when I go offshore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still waiting for better weather. As far as inshore, we got plenty of fish inshore right now, plenty of bait, more bait than I've ever seen. Um,
I do know a lot of that freshwater has pushed some of the bait down to and just stacked them up in certain areas.
yes, and I think I guess it's leading into the topic, right? How the pressure is affecting that, like the different kinds of pressure other than just weather, right? And other fishermen, I feel like there's different other pressure that these fish are taking on. Chemical spills don't help, right? The barge.
I think
And
overall it wasn't that bad, but I mean, obviously, I'd rather it be zero, but it could have been worse. So
I mean, it being right there by the outlet to the sea, I guess that also helped, right? Because I guess the
yeah,
video you posted showed it going outbound, right?
no, it was actually inbound because at the time it was an incoming tide. So
Oh,
it pushed it up into the bay, but it being right there, um, near that area, it's where it has strong tidal flows. It probably got pushed out as just as quickly too.
oh,
Um,
that's good.
and then basically the oil booms that they put up to contain it, they were put up probably at the latest that I saw was probably around like 5 o'clock. So the accident happened at 10 o'clock. Which, by the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, we last week, I believe on Thursday or so, Wednesday or Thursday, maybe Friday, um, a barge broke loose and struck the Pelican Island Bridge. It actually trapped some people on the island for a little bit, and eventually they let people off. One of the railroad trestles that is parallel to the bridge is not being used. The railroad trestles that actually broke off uh, uh, and it's still that one's gone. Um, and the bridge recently reopened, I believe, yesterday. Um, so nothing like what happened in like Baltimore or anything like that, but also in association with the barge striking the bridge, there was a oil leak, and there were some pretty stark photos. If you go to our Facebook page, you can see those. Um, Especially, it's affecting an area that has some pretty good fishing. So
See, it was all a conspiracy, right? It's another conspiracy theory, like Baltimore. Who's driving that boat? Like, who's driving that tugboat? Who's in the barge?
yeah, I don't know.
Anyways,
Yeah,
I'm teasing. But
but
yeah, let's talk about. I want to talk about the pressure that we are experiencing, like recently.
yeah.
What would you? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple types of pressure that we can pressure is different depending on what you're talking about. One is obviously going to be the human pressure, fisherman pressure, fishing pressure. Um, you know, I still I wouldn't say I was going to say that I was going to say that loose lips sink ships kind of thing. I used to be a firm believer in that. There, I still think there's a kernel of truth to it. Um, Like, obviously, if, like, there's a certain area and you tell people about it and it just gets overrun, obviously, the fishing's gonna be different there. It won't be the same just because there's just so many people there. Not to and it's also, you could also have if it's a population of fish that are always there and too many people fish it, it just takes them out. That could be a thing. So there's that type of pressure. The other one's environmental, not only man-made environmental, but also just naturally occurring. Um, and I think we want to separate those into two separate topics as we talk about this topic of pressure. And I think the easiest one to start off with is just of people fishing pressure. So uh, obviously this
So
is not.
when you say people are like you think like the new or what I've seen, the new YouTube information based, um, that being one of those, Facebook pictures,
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know how like we used to see pictures of people at Seawolf Park, and then everybody go to Seawolf Park,
Yeah.
Texas City Dike when the Flounder Run happens. Then it gets a whole bunch of people. I think Hannah Reese was one of those reefs that also got like people posting about it, and it got, you know, certain reefs in our bay system got overrun by social media, and I guess YouTube would be under that category too.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, of course, fishing is even more popular than it has been ever. And I mean, obviously, I want more people to go fishing to experience what we experience, but also, I think we talked with Justin about this, you know, when we're talking about trout, you know, it's just fishing has exploded, but also I wish fishing hasn't exploded just because I'm selfish and don't want people fishing my spots. Or, and that's the whole thing. It's really nobody's spots. It's just, you know, there's a whole thing about putting in the effort and finding new patterns and finding fish. And some people just trolling through, literally trolling through, again, pun intended, trolling through YouTube and getting the highlights and be like, oh, I know where that is. I can go there and fish it. And of course that's like half the battle, but it's a big portion of the battle. Yeah, Justin in the comments saying join my Patreon for all my guide spots. But the big thing for me is I'll blow. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. But you know, one of my favorite places to go out is over at San Luis Pass. You know,
No.
Yeah. It's San Luis
It's a good
Pass.
spot.
Yeah,
it's a really good spot.
Yeah, and there's tons of people out there. And I have tons of videos of me out there having real good days. And the reason why I don't post videos from there, I actually don't post videos at all, is because there are certain areas, and especially, and I'll take this, especially areas that are very easily accessible so that you can get to, like you can wade to it. I'm very hesitant to show because that will get people there. And, you know, if I don't want it to be like, I have to, when I'm there, I have to be like, I can't fish there now because somebody's there, because I actually follow the etiquette. But at the same time,
just walk right behind them, throw over their head, and then you start reeling right next to them, like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. But the thing is that also, you know, San Luis Pass is so large. There are definitely other places that you can get to from there, especially if you're in a kayak or a boat. And you're a little bit more, you're more limited wading, but you know, you can still find other areas. But I will say, from if you're wading and you're limited to where you can wade, and let's say like this weekend is going to be Memorial Day weekend, you are going to have a tough time finding like open areas to fish because there's going to be a ton of people out there. And which is one reason why I like the kayak, because you can get up and move to a different location. But you know, even if you have that mobility, just blowing up a spot, having a bunch of people fishing there, it's, I don't know, it definitely affects the fishing in some ways. And as much as I want to be like, yeah, I definitely can go somewhere and find fish, I'm lazy right now. I'm old and I'm not old, but I'm feeling older, and I want to go out and just do what I've been doing and catch some fish, you know.
Yeah, I get it. You're like at that point of age where like you're not getting, like you're just going down, right? You're not growing. You're just
Yeah.
That's okay.
You know, I don't want to offend, especially our older. Actually, most of our audience is usually on a little bit on the older side. So,
well, like what's older? Like, I'm just curious. What do you think is older? I'm 43 here.
According to our statistics online, generally our audience is looking at between 35 to 45, roughly. So, and that's not, you know, yeah. As Paul says, it only gets worse, you know. So we're no longer young bucks, and you know, I can definitely see that we're on top of the mountain, and it's going to go downhill from here. But you know, fishermen are inherently lazy, you know. We know what we want, we know what we like, and It's not. I just want to go out there and just keep doing what I'm doing and learn a little bit, but yeah, fishing pressure definitely affects it. But at the same time, I think it's almost kind of like it's a double-edged sword. Oh, happy birthday, Stacy! Stacy's celebrating her 50th today. Happy
For some reason,
50,
I thought
Stacy.
Stacy's birthday was on the same as mine. I guess not.
And
Anyways,
and of course, Stacy, you definitely do not look 50 at all. I would not
yeah, you
have
look great
thought that.
for your age. So
But
I know we didn't talk about the speaking of getting old. Me and a younger guy, we went out fishing and got caught in some storms. And I remember like dodging these storms and being like, back then I was like, man, we'll wait it out and this and that. And had a lot of energy. And now this time I was just like, let's wait underneath this bridge. And any other day I'd continue fishing, but I was just like, yeah, let's just call it a day. Like I just don't have that hunger I used to have. Right. So it's like we caught a couple fish and I was good with that. And I think that comes with age as well. It's like I'm not really that I used to just me and Justin used to go out there. We used to do crazy hours. We'd fish like sun down to sun up. Like we'd have nights like that. Like those don't exist anymore. Those do not exist anymore. But that
yeah,
comes with the age bracket.
I used to fish with Jay a lot more than what I'm doing now. And it was actually at San Luis Pass. We were out there, and it was one of those days where in the middle of summer where you randomly have the storms come up. And I was like, man, that storm cloud's coming over. He's like, yeah, it's probably going to hit. It'll be quick. Shouldn't we head in? Like, no, we'll be fine. Just stand out. We'll stand out over here. And then it was one of those things where like the wind, it was like, about 10 miles an hour. It dropped to 0. And I'm like, yeah, shouldn't we go in? It looks like it's gonna get bad. It'll be bad for a little bit, but it'll be fine. We'll be fine. And I keep looking, and you can hear the rain start coming. I'm like, oh man. And it just goes from like 0 to like 20, 25, 30 mile an hour winds. It was just swirling rain. I'm like, what the heck? I could, he's next to me and I can barely
still
hear
throwing in the rain.
Yeah, he's still tossing in the rain. And then like I could barely hear him. And then I like, what'd you say? It's like, oh, as long as it's not thundering, we're fine. I'm like, what? And we're just swirling rain. And I'm like, man, if it was just me, I would have booked it already. And we sat there. It was about 10 minutes of that. And I remember a few minutes in, I'm like, man, I'm gonna go in. He's like, oh, we're fine. And then it stopped, and the trout bite right after that was amazing.
That's what I was about to ask you. How was the bite after it passed?
It was we were in like an ankle, like not about shin deep water, and it became glass calm. I actually have a video of it somewhere. It was glass calm. It was still slightly sprinkling. There's a rainbow. You can see a rainbow. I'm throwing a super spook, and then it was just like you just see your spook just glide, in the water, and then boom, you have a trout hit it, have a fish on. And it was just like that for the next like 40 minutes of just walking on that flat. And it was just great fishing. But going back to our fishing pressure, I do think it's a double-edged thing, double-edged sword, because if you have lots of fishing pressure, obviously you're not going to be able to do what you want to do because you're either crowded out of your area or the fish are behaving differently because of it. But it forces you also to adapt and figure out a different pattern, figure out a different way to fish in that area. The same thing has happened over in at San Luis Pass. There are areas that patterns that I've established, Jay and I have established over the years, and we love doing that during the summer. And sometimes, when we're out there, somebody's already out there in a boat, or even in a kayak or waiting or whatever. And those days, whenever we can't do what we wanted to do in the morning, we'll start picking around a different area. And, oh, okay, so we found this different area. There's different sandbar, there's different gut, there's different drop off that we've been wanting to hit and fish that. And then, oh, here's a new pattern. So in a sense, it kind of helps because now I'm not as hesitant. Obviously, there's certain things I want to do out there. There's certain patterns I really enjoy doing out there, and that's the first thing I want to do. But because of pressure, I'm okay with it because I know how to do something else.
Right. I think fishing pressure, like I know from my experience, if there's tarpon running, like and feeding, once somebody hooks up once or twice, and then all these boats start coming out of nowhere, like they just stop biting. Like that's my experience. It's like when there's a lot of boat traffic and boats around, I feel like the tarpon just lay low and then they won't come up. But like it almost seems like when there's a spot where nobody's around, they pop up. And I think fishing pressure, if it affects those fish, I'm almost certain it affects even trout, redfish, stuff like that. Flounder, I don't know, man. Flounder is just, I feel like they're just a totally different animal, like because I've been on flounder when everybody else is catching flounder, and I don't know, they'll be in the same spot. I sat in one spot one time. I didn't count, right? But it was easily over 20, 30 flounder. And we're talking from sizes like 16 to 22. And it just same little area, just casting and just catching them and catching them.
Yeah.
And you think that, that other person pulls up next and they're catching them. And it's like, I don't know, maybe pressure does. I don't know about flounder, but
yeah, I don't think flounder kind of. I mean, I think they're affected in some ways, but they're maybe a little more not as susceptible because they're definitely bottom fish.
yeah.
For an example, Curtis and I were actually out there a couple winters ago. We were waiting, looking for trout, and we caught a couple trout, and we kind of we were in our kayaks, and we found some trout, and we hopped out of the kayaks to really work that area, and at that point there wasn't a bunch of there was no boat traffic where we were at, and we started catching flounder on Corky Fat Boys. It was just like letting if we didn't get a trout working it, and we if you backlash or something like that, or we just let it sink sink to the bottom, you'd catch a flounder instead of a trout, and we were just having a great time catching flounder, and then a boat goes by. We were fishing inside of a channel, so obviously no way around it. They had to go through us, so they went through that channel, and I'm like, man, that's probably going to kill that bite. Yeah, it killed the trout bite. But I remember the boat went through, and the water was settling down, and I hooked up on another flounder. Like, okay, we caught flounder, but it may be dead. And then another boat went through, and I'm like, that's probably it. And I remember just like it passed, and I cast right behind it, and I was literally in its prop wash, and I hook up on one of the bigger flounder we caught that day.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, they're still here. And it kind of, the action was slowed down after the boats came through, but we were still catching them after that.
Right.
But I will say we didn't catch another trout after the boats went through. So.
Yeah. Since to do it. One thing I like to do with, speaking of pressure is like, this is just a theory, right, guys? Don't beat me up for this. When you catch a trout, try not to horse him out. If you can play him softly, what I mean by that is you're not yanking and reeling him in and yanking him, or he's coming up splashing water. But if you hook him and you just keep the line tight, like what I mean is just keep the line tight and just reeling the slack, and let him move around without coming up crazy. Sometimes you can't help it. They're going to come up, head shaking. It is what it is. But if you can keep them low into the water column without him coming up, going crazy, and bring him in, that technique has worked for me a couple times, but there'll always be that one trout that just comes up and shakes up and everything. But I feel like it'll help you land maybe an extra trout or two in a smaller school or something. That's just a theory of mine.
I don't know. I don't know if I subscribe to that, but I think if they're there, they're there.
I feel like if it's a small school, right? I'm not talking about a huge school. Their birds are working, birds are feeding, and they're just thousands of them, and you're catching them. I'm talking about you're working a small school here, and you want another opportunity to catch another trout. If you can, try to keep him lower in the column and let him move around a little bit without yanking him up. Just a theory.
Yeah.
I don't know
And
what you guys think about it. Think I'm crazy?
yeah, but let's ask in the comments here. Just say, do you think that that theory holds any water? Um, which, which, by the way, if you want to join us, we're live every other Tuesday. You can find us at facebook.com/. One Last Cast Podcast, or on YouTube, search One Last Cast Podcast, and you can watch us live there. Um, and another thing I do want to say, um, so actually, it's kind of going back to the YouTube thing, where there's a lot of YouTubers out there. I wouldn't say a lot, but there's YouTubers out there who just, they, for the sake of content, for better or worse, whenever they post videos out there, they just show where they're at and they talk about it, and there's some good information out there, but at the same time, it just kind of blows up certain areas where, um, especially a lot of areas where it's like it's not as well known, and then all of a sudden they go there, film it, and then now a lot of people know about it, so it's kind of front of mind for their audience. So you'll get that sudden influx of people going out there. um, there's one thing to know where to go, and it's another thing to know how to fish it. And I'm going to go to another example that this is all Jay Lee. When I've been fishing with him, we've been fishing an area for probably close to a decade now, and it's real good fishing, real good fishing. The problem is that as the years have gone on, it's the fishing pressure has definitely increased. The pattern is not like what it used to be, and there's been dredging in that area, and a lot more boat traffic. This has kind of built up a little bit, and the pattern's changed. Um, but Jay's figured out a different way to fish it, in a sense that it's like, um, yeah, no, no one thinks I'm crazy. Yeah, nobody's disagreeing with you, Merrill.
Oh
But
man, I was hoping to get somebody to like Merrill. You're losing. The age is getting to you.
but yeah, it's a certain area where it's just there's people fishing it like the way that I would use to fish it, and they'll catch some fish. But Jay's figured out a completely different method, um, and there's people who've watched us who've been there. They fish with us, and it's just they don't. Even sometimes I don't have the strategy down. I don't have the technique down, and it's people just don't. They go right over it most of the time. Um, and it's I think that's another component to consider. That yeah, you can show people where to go, but doesn't like the whole saying that you can lead horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like this is funny, right? Like you say that. So like if you had the right gear, right? Like so, I've been next to a person, and they fish the same way all the time. They just pop that lure, like they just work that lure. They're just popping it, popping it, popping it. And like when I'm working a fat boy, I can feel what it does with the rod tip, right? Not just that, like certain lures too, right? I pop, and I can feel it when it falls and it rattles and it's falling. And like I can feel it with my rod tip. And some people are so used to just working baits, just working the crap out of baits, and that's just what they do. And you just erratic pops, and then that's how they get their bites. Me, I do different stuff with different lures, and I try to know what my bait's doing in the water. And sometimes there's that fall that goes with the current. Your bait falls with the current or moving with the current and just moving lethargic. And those are my best bites when I know what my lure is doing. Like usually typically if I'm in an air, I'm like super honed in, tuned in to knowing exactly what my bait is doing in the water and knowing what it's doing in the water and picturing what the structure looks like down on the topography. Is that the right word?
yeah,
Yeah.
basically, it just sounds like you're real dialed into what's happening.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I try to stay dialed in, especially if I know that the bite's a little bit harder and I know that the fish should be there. Are they there? I mean, sometimes it's a swing and a miss, but sometimes that little extra technique it's helpful, and you can get that with the right gear. You can't get that with a big old thick, medium heavy rod that you fish for flounder with, and you're trying to finesse trout. Um, just what does Justin say? Sometimes I think fishing pressure.
I think what he's saying is definitely true. So Justin, he put in the comments here, um, sometimes I think fishing pressure affects us more than the fish as affects us more than the fish. Um, the intercoastal ship channel and Baytown are examples of fish getting used to boats and even large vessels wakes moving in and day out. So yeah, I think that's totally true. Especially if you think of Baytown, those areas, especially during the winter, you have barges going in and out, and those wakes, which if you're on those reefs, they can be pretty strong, and there's boats running around out there, and you'll still catch fish. I just think, I think in the situations like that they'll definitely affect us more than affect the fish, because they'll go in and mess up your drift, or there'll be people out there already, and you can't really do what you want to do. I do want to say, this is especially for the walk and wade or bank fishermen. One big proponent why I, especially these areas where I like to walk in at, I don't like this, disclosing where that is because we are fast losing access to walk in bank fishing spots. Because people trash it. There's there's tons of places in West Bay where we used to be able to walk in at, we can't walk in anymore. And that's another thing. I don't mind. I'm kind of indifferent to YouTubers being out there, but if it's a walk-in spot, I'm kind of hesitant just because I don't want that spot blown up and blocked, because that just becomes another area where I can't go to. So
what about pressure about like freshwater? Would that be considered a pressure, like with all the new runoffs that we're having with the infrastructure that we're building by Clear Lake, example, Taylor Lake? We've got a lot of infrastructure coming up. I've noticed that the water's being brackish a little bit more longer than usual, typically, especially when it rains, even small rains. Back in Trinity area, Baytown area, how's the brackish water? Is that even affecting it as pressure? Would that be considered pressure?
No, it's in the sense that we're talking about. It's definitely a pressure that. So if you don't already, I would definitely, for those of you who are on here who want to learn more fishing, especially the technical side, definitely go look up Tobin Strickland. He's a great trout guy, not guide, but he's a trout guy, and he has lots of informational videos on his page. And he actually recently talked about this, showing the NOAA, the Salinity Nowcast, which is also another tool you should use. It shows the projections of water salinity on the surface. So if you look at it right now, after all the rains that we've had, basically, the running joke right now is that you can go catch crappie and bass in the middle of Trinity Bay. So that's how fresh it looks out there. But saltwater is more dense than fresh. So there are definitely areas that are deeper that the salt will be that's still out there. But whenever we have all these major rain events, I found that especially like West Bay, and other areas going up north, maybe around Texas City, that they just start stacking up at. I'm not sure if like the trout just follow down. I don't think they all just follow down and go towards the saltier water. I think they just go towards like the nearest deep water and just sit it out. As long as it doesn't, the salinity doesn't like change overnight and slowly comes out, the trout will be fine. But that's in terms of a pressure. Yeah, that's going to be something that changes the fishing and just puts another variable that you have on your plate.
So when you said, I think some of the I say residential fish, but some of the residential fish, they will go to these deeper pockets. But I've seen birds work on freshwater days when we get all this fresh water in, and they'll work from the back of Clear Lake all the way through the channel and work their way out to the channel that's way out there. And, or, around that little reef that's right there by the boardwalk, that little small reef, and they start working out that way. I've seen that with my own eyes many, many times. I actually used to target trout that way. When it rained a lot, a certain amount, I would see the bait move and the trout would follow that bait ball all the way out. I do believe a lot of trout do stay in these deeper pockets, not just in Clear Lake, but other lake areas that have deep pockets. But I do believe some of them do make their way out. Don't know which ones, but
Yeah,
seeing
and,
that.
and
And
another example of that would be so the spillway over in Trinity. Um, whenever that spillway, whenever it rains a lot and it hasn't rained, the fresh water hasn't reached out to Trinity Bay yet. That spillway will release a lot of fresh water and it'll be all kind of dirty sometimes. And it basically it flows into a spillway and it goes out between the jetties that they have out there. There's these rock jetties and it goes down to the bay.
right.
So there'll be this line of fresh water and it doesn't mix with that salt water. So it'll be clean and dirty water right there. When you see that, it's like, I've been out there a couple of times when we had situations like that. You fish that line of fresh water and you'll catch fish. You'll throw into the fresh water, bring it out, and then just trout will just come out and just pounce them.
Nice.
And also I've been out there in East Bay. We were running on a boat, running a shoreline, and we saw, it had been raining, up towards like the Sabine Lake area, up that way, up east, and we were getting towards the intercoastal over there, and it was just this line of just dirty looking water, but it was a little bit of fresh water mixed in right there, and we just went up that line until we found it was sitting on a reef, and on that reef it was just lights out fishing. If you throw in top waters, there'll be fish, just busting up bait. And as the tide was coming, I guess, it was going out, going towards Galveston. We basically started following it back. And it was every single time that we found that line up against like some sort of structure or a drop off or something, we just caught fish. It was great.
Nice.
So
Good.
it's also like a good thing. That's why we're talking about how these freshwater events, like I'm talking Harvey or some of these floods. Yeah, East Bay and Trinity is all sorts of messed up. Not saying the fish aren't there; it's just gonna be more difficult to catch them. And I'm talking trout. There's probably, if you know what you're doing, you're catching a bunch of reds out there right now. I know black drum love all this stuff, but I'm talking trout. It becomes more difficult. But and the flip side of all of that freshwater, they just go up in areas and just stack up, and it's
Right.
fine.
I don't think we've had any like big crazy rains
No.
yet. Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I said, the last couple of weeks it's been pretty heavy. The whole story about the what one of the dams was releasing more water than it did during Harvey, and it's just like the pressure of the water is higher than what it was at Harvey. But it's it's fresh, but not that fresh.
Right. It's not flooding fresh. Yeah. Where we got like 3 days of straight rain. Those kind of raining days. So what about what other kind of pressure would there be, you think, other than what we just talked about, like the freshwater, the YouTube, social media?
I mean,
maybe like oyster reef. You think the oyster reef has an impact? I feel like that's pressure on trout or other fish that lives on the reef.
I think
I think
our definition of pressure, it probably won't involve that. I mean, there is that's more of a byproduct of like the of an environment, like of fishing, like people just either planting or harvesting or destroying oyster reefs or whatever it may be. I don't think Yeah, it takes away
I
habitat.
think it is kind, right. I think even the grass, right, like the fact that we have left grass, that's less areas for the trout to breed, or not just trout but other fish to, where they spawn at. Like that's pressure on a fish, I feel like,
Yeah, I think we're just in a sense like that. We're talking about just habitat.
Yeah.
And I that goes to like the kind of natural and human development. Whether you have a neighborhood being built and that kind of destroys the grassland. Yeah, that's kind of pressure that's negative. Um, but it kind of goes back to you kind of adapt, right? You have an area where it's a bunch of grass, and then they dredge out a channel. They put in these houses right here. So that kind of sucks because the area that you used to know is no longer there. But instead, now in the next couple of years, you know, you're going to have a deep canal to fish during the winter, or now you have these houses out there that are going to have green lights for you to fish. So it's the kind of the balance that you're looking at. Um, there's a spot. I used to fish over in I'm going to say I used to fish over in Dickinson.
No way.
And yeah, it's just uh, and it was amazing. There's always bait in there, and it was really well protected on most of the sides. A lot of good tidal movement, and during the winter, we've caught some real good trout in there, some good redfish, um, and over time, it just got developed. Just it got dredged out a little bit. Some of the features that were very desirable to fish kind of changed. Um, and now it's just, and even in ideal conditions, whenever I go out there during the winter, it's not the same anymore. Um, but on the flip side, actually, there's no flip side to that right now. I'm still trying to figure that place out. So, but it's changed. It's inevitable. Things happen, but that's why we go fishing, right? We go out there to figure out this new puzzle that we have, and figure out a new pattern, and hopefully we do. If not, go try somewhere else. But
Way to stay positive, Jonathan.
I was like,
Try to keep this positive spin on it.
That's my job, to put positive spin on things. Yeah, I started telling that story, that my anecdote, and I realized, man, if I keep going like this, there's nothing positive about this. I'm going to end the podcast on this negative note right here, and that would just be kind of a bummer. So
mission still, still a mission to figure out.
Yeah, but I mean, I know I've been answering a lot of things, but kind of what would your take, your take on with like all these, especially like the human pressure where you have YouTubers going out and showing spots and all that.
What's my thoughts?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Man, I'm biased. I can't. I have a lot of friends that are YouTubers. Took one of my guide classes with one of them. Still people I associate with. I feel like they found a niche where like people are thriving for knowledge, and they want to do that, and it, it's hard. Like I just see it, like I just see it a different way. I don't see it as bad or as negative as a lot of other people see it. They're doing what they're loving, they're getting paid for it, right? And people are paying for that knowledge.
Yeah, number one thing, I'm not knocking the hustle.
Right.
I'm definitely not knocking the hustle.
And I'm a firm believer that fish move. And so if you're bombing out a spot, they could have moved. They're not going to stay in the spot where they're getting murdered, all the time. I feel like fish move, and my saying's always fish move, and so should you. That's one of my sayings I say. So that's my take on it.
Okay, the title of the video is going to be Merriel Solesky Loves YouTubers.
I would say I love YouTubers. I got friends, and
I got it.
They're making, and it's like I see what they're doing and I see why they're doing it. And if it's bombing out a spot that you would go to catch fish, find another spot, right? Like I've personally been, when I was guiding heavily, I would take people fishing in this one area and I would get my same clients in that same area and they'd bring their friends. That was just the name of the game. I could A, got mad about it, or B, just moved around, or, tell them, hey, look, we're going to try to go to this area if y'all want to go to that area, or I haven't hit up that back area. If y'all want, I would probably most likely communicate with them. I know some people, they get mad and upset if they take out clients and they come back on that same spot. And it's like, I make my living here, get out of my spot. And I'm not like that. I'm like, okay, you could have that area. There's plenty of other areas, like you said, to fish, and I go fish those other areas and try something new. And the main point for me fishing is to try to regurgitate the knowledge that I've learned and help somebody better their fishing, whether we catch fish or not, but most likely we catch fish. So that's my thing. Is there pressure on fish? Yes. Do I have a problem with it? No. Think fish move. Is that like is that more confusing or
no? It makes sense. I think my final take on this is going to be, for 99% of the time for like YouTubers and everybody in general, they're not trying to blow up a spot. They're just doing it for the content. But I would like them to think about the consequences, especially if it, the pressure gets so high to where they close down spots, and that affects me. So, I
can see that.
Yeah, West Bay in particular. Like I said, there used to be a dozen places you can put in in West Bay.
More than a dozen places.
Yeah, I know. There are more than a dozen, but there's now there's like 3.
Yes. No, that is true. That is true. 8 Mile was a prime example. That was such a good area to launch off at, and you could either go left or right and be those 2 different areas you could fish, and or you can go straight and fish the other. It was such a good area, and that got shut down. That's just the beginning. There's a ton of spots that got shut down because of pressure, people fishing it, and that's one of the downfalls.
Yeah, and some of it, and I will say, some of it is not people's fault. It's just over time, land got bought up, and it's just. It happens, but there are definitely not quite a few, but there are a few out of those, limited places that you could launch at or go in at that got closed down because people got fed up of cleaning up trash and whoever came and dirtied up the place. So the limited resource here is just the walk-in places. And
get a kayak, Jonathan. No,
hey, these are the places that I put in at too. Okay, where you can walk in at, where I put in my kayak. Even Sea Isle, they've limited parking there now.
Yes, they did.
So on a busy weekend, you're kind of SOL, or you're gonna have to drag your kayak, half a mile to get to.
Somebody that lives on the channel. That always helps.
I don't want to talk to people. I go fishing. I go fishing most of the time to get away from people.
I have a buddy that lives there, so I launch at his place. So
yeah, I used to have a buddy who lived in the canal, off the canal, and I launched off his dock, and it was great. But
yeah, it's good. It's good. That and the Jamaica Beach too, right? They shut down that one spot on the edge of it. Jamaica Beach used to be a really good walk-in weight spot. Was Jumbile Cove?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Basically, like half of West Bay now, even with a kayak, you can't access it, just because it's like just too far of a paddle to make it worth it. I mean, you could conceivably paddle it, but it makes it as not as accessible as it used to be, I should say. So,
Good point.
All right. So
Noted. Are we past an hour already? Jeez.
yeah, we passed an hour already, and it's okay.
We always
it's
never
been
finish our topics, do we?
no, we never finish. But yeah, if you you know, shop talk here. If you're going out soon offshore, let me know, and I'll see if I can join you. I definitely want to kick up the old offshore fishing that I haven't done in like 10 years. So
All right, so I guess we're gonna call it.
yeah, we'll call it today. So yeah, everybody, thanks for listening to us. We definitely appreciate you guys listening in and enjoy your guys comments and stuff like that. By the way, if you want to talk to us, send us a message on facebook.com/one last cast podcast, or you can email us at one last cast podcast @gmail.com. You can also find us online. We have a website at onelastcastpodcast.com. We have all of our episodes there. I should say we have most of our episodes there because I've been slacker and not uploading our latest ones. But most of our episodes are on there. We have some blog content on there. Trying to kickstart some other video content. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, you can find us at onelastcastpodcast.com. And but yeah, most of the time we'll be here at facebook.com/one last cast podcast and on YouTube as well. Before we hop off, let's give another shout out to our sponsor, Knocking Tail Lures. If you're looking for those soft plastics with the tail, the rattle in the tail, go to knockingtaillures.com. DSKA, Dirty South Kayak Anglers, another great Facebook group to join if you want to talk kayaking and fishing. 4A Printing, they do all of our custom merch. Reach out to Aaron and he will take care of you. And of course, Brittany Solesky, Merrill's lovely wife. If you're looking for real estate here in Houston, whether it's residential or commercial, you can reach her at 281-740-0498 or Brittany Solesky. That's BRITNEYSOLESKY @gmail.com. So, lesson learned. Don't give up your fishing spot. I'm just kidding. Just, go back and listen. And they're, like I said, it's a double-edged sword, but, go fishing, have fun. Fishing's going to heat up soon. It's going to be great.
It's right around the corner. It's around the corner.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have some real good inshore fishing, and then on the special days that you can go offshore, Merrill's going to be out there trolling for kings, looking for tarpon. Have you gotten a cobia yet?
Yes, I've gotten a cobia. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So go.
Oh, this year? No, not this year. No.
I mean, just in general.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the only fish. Well, not the only fish, but that's the main fish I have not gotten yet from a kayak.
Oh, okay. It's pretty cool. It's a good fight. It's a tough fight.
Yeah.
So I forgot to say, if you guys also want to go offshore, Blake Colburn has, I think he has the date set up already, and he'll post it on my page. He'll post it on DSKA. So just we'll post it on our page as well for you guys that first time offshore. There'll be a group of experienced experienced kayakers that are going to go with Blake, and we'll help show you the ropes and how to do things and what to look for. And just make sure that, we'll make sure it's safe for you guys to go out and come back in. And we had one time where it got a little too rough and it was questionable. We brought everybody back in. So just, we'll post it on the page if you guys want to go offshore fishing.
Right now, he posted on the 12th of March about this, but the current date, let me actually make sure. The current date that he has set up for that is June 29th of 2024. Let me double check to make sure that's correct. But yeah, I think it's a great time if you're a first time offshore fisherman or even just want to go offshore with a big group. Usually there's a bunch of people going out all at once, and they'll make an effort, especially if you're new. They'll pair you up with, experienced anglers, who've been out there. That way that you have it's a buddy system, So, yeah, I can't confirm nor deny whether the date is. My internet's kind of not working, but yeah, currently the number I have is June 29th. Reach out to Blake if you're interested. Look up Texas Kayak Fisherman and you can go on there and find it. And of course, keep an eye out on updates. Whenever we see some, we'll post it on our page. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Join us next time. Like I said, we're live every other Tuesday. And this has been the One Last Cast podcast. You guys have a good one.
Take care, guys.